Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, sons and daughters of God. Thank you so much for joining in. So here's the thing. Life is life is a life is a learning process. Bruno Groening said that this earth is a school, and he even went so far as to sometimes call it a play school. Here in America, play school generally is something we talk about for 4 or 5 year olds. So Bruno called us, which that can be a little insulting to the ego, right? Like, oh, I'm here on this earth, which is just kind of like a kindergarten. Now that can be a little hard on our sense of pride, our sense of ego. And Bruno Groening pointed out that we are children of God, that's what we are. And um, and that we need to remember and realize this so that we can stay humble, so that we can recognize our need for God. When we think of a small child, they're utterly dependent on their parent, utterly dependent. A 1, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, without their parents' protection or without the protection of an adult, and not just protection but care, they literally cannot survive. This probably goes on for maybe a 7-year-old might at that point know enough to survive, but before that, utter dependence on their parent. And I believe this is um, how Bruno Groening himself related to God and how he calls us to relate to God, to recognize. In fact, he said, we depend on God. We are dependent on God. Yet, in the 21st century, with all this technology and fancy smartphones and internet and credit cards, and it's very easy to feel independent on God, of God. With enough money, someone can live and be completely isolated and have food delivered to their house. They can work online. They can completely have this independent life. But Bruno Groening pointed out that he said there is no life without God. That unless we're connected to God, we're not actually alive. We're not actually living. We might be biologically alive. And this speaks to my own experience. The times when I feel really connected to the divine, when I feel, I was raised Christian, so we would say when I feel full of the Spirit, or when I'm really, again, this is just my old language, but it might help some of you relate. When I really feel connected to Christ, or I feel the love of Christ for me, life is very different than when I'm just kind of going through my day, doing my thing. It's almost like colors are brighter, and there's just this feeling of aliveness, which makes sense because Bruno Groening said that God is life itself. So if we're feeling connected to life and aliveness, we're feeling connected to God. And Bruno Groening pointed out that God is not very far, that he's everywhere and in everything. So let's spend a little time. Once again, there's a technical glitch, and the chat is not available, which I'm disappointed to see. And technology, I'm learning how to all these different ways. So if you have any comments, feel free to post them after the video. You can there'll be a place for you to you can put in the comments section. And thank you everyone for joining in. So let's spend a little time in silence, taking in the good, and hopefully you're already tuning in. But if not, please sit with your feet flat on the floor, hands on your legs, palms facing upwards, back straight. Then closing your eyes, inwardly inviting in the good, wanting the good, attuning ourselves to life, and then observing the body, having the intention to take that in. Noticing what you feel, taking in, absorbing the good. Welcome to everyone who's joined in. There's a technical glitch and chat isn't available. So I'm a little sad about that, and I trust. And I'm working on it. Won't be able to fix it during this meeting, however, for future meetings. I think I know what's causing it. So Bruno Groening said, being rich in life means striving after God. Being rich in life means striving after God. Very interesting statement. Everyone wants to be rich. I mean, that's sort of those of us, where people on the spiritual path recognize that a lot of money isn't the solution to all of our problems. It isn't going to, and even so, we all want to be rich. And yet Bruno Groening turns it around, completely around. Right? We have this idea that rich means having all this money and living in luxury and so forth and so on. And Bruno Groening completely turns that around. That what it means to be rich is to strive for God. And of course, then to have those moments, and hopefully those moments turn into minutes, and over time to have more and more of a sense of connection with God. Again, God being life. But wouldn't it be interesting if we let go of all of our ideas about what would make us happy and just sat with the idea that connection to God and then serving goodness, helping, being connected and helping. But let's even back up a moment and really reflect on, if you're here at this meeting or you're on any kind of spiritual path, you have some kind of calling in some way, shape, or form you are striving for or seeking. You might even not use the word God. When I first found Bruno's teaching, I didn't use the word God at all. Um, didn't have much less word, but a concept. But so if you're on some kind of spiritual path, you're seeking something not necessarily in this world, meaning not a material thing. What if even that striving, even that seeking, even that desire is a sign of wealth or richness? One of my spiritual heroes, Ramana Maharshi, says, "It is only by the grace of God that you think of God." So to even have the inclination towards spirituality, towards God, is a wonderful, wonderful grace. Wonderful grace. So let's sit with all this for a moment. The idea of what truly brings happiness. Let's sit with Bruno Groening's definition of richness. And let's contemplate the grace that even that we're on a spiritual path, even that we feel this calling. There's so many things in the world. There's so many in the 21st century, especially if you have a computer, and everyone watching this does or has access to one. There's a lot of things you can do with your time, right? Besides work, we've got video games and the internet and movies and music and travel and books galore. There's so many things that you can do with your time, but something inside each one of us, I would argue inside each person, and maybe many people are disconnected from it, but have it buried, is yearning for something, seeking something. And so let's sit with the idea that the fact that we're seeking this something that isn't necessary, that isn't something material, is quite a blessing. Or as Bruno Groening said, means that we're actually rich. taking in the good, observing your body, intending to take it in, take in this goodness. So, so we're looking at the quote of Bruno's: being rich in life means striving after God. And so for me, it's very important to um, have some perspective and balance on this. I spoke of there's all these activities that we can do, such as movies and internet and reading, and I'm not saying that we should do none of those things. I'm not. What I am saying is that according to Bruno's teaching, we need to be clear what we're putting first, and we need to be clear where our happiness is and where our health, not just our happiness, but our health and our well-being lies. And that's in connection with God, and being in service to God. And being in service to God can be, many of us come from a religious background. I do, but that can be very confusing. What does that mean to be in service to God? Well, and what does it mean to strive after God? Well, Bruno made it so simple for us that God is life and love. And so we can just be in service to life itself. We can just be loving in healthy ways, and be caring and loving and nurturing in healthy, empowered ways. My understanding is if we're doing that, we are serving God, we are serving life. A big part of the spiritual path is finding a form of service that works for us. You know, um, for many years, because people told me I was very compassionate and very accepting, I thought it was my job to become a counselor. But just listening to people talk and talk and talk, it's very draining for me. But I kept trying to force myself to do it because I thought that I should. I thought that's my gift. That's what I'm here to. So we have to be a little discerning about how to serve. And obviously, if that type of giving, if that type of service doesn't is harmful to me, then it's obviously not God. It's obviously not what God has in mind for me. So let's really spend some time tuning in. Now, I was just talking to my roommate, who I call my God brother, because he and I support each other. I really support each other in our walk. in our spiritual walk. Um, and he said, if I start off my day saying, "Okay, universe," that's his word for God, "Universe, how can I serve you today? How can I be of service?" And he really means it. It just kind of comes to him, all these opportunities to be helpful. So let's really see if that prayer resonates. And if so, let's make it now. Let's commit ourselves to, again, healthy service, healthy contributing in ways that are really, really healthy for us and the people we're serving. Taking in the good, letting it fill us up. Bruno Groening, I have to paraphrase it, but he said to the effect, "When are you going to realize you're a child of God and decide you want nothing, to have nothing in common with evil anymore?" So we can have that realization. And then for me, it's a day by day sticking with it, day by day, because all life happens, all sorts of challenges, fears, situation, situations happen. And then it's how, I used to think the spiritual path was about there not being any negative things in my life. And it's a very common spiritual belief today. And I believe it's very, yeah, a very almost, I almost want to say dangerous belief because there's sort of here, 21st century, there's negativity all around us. Much less, until we're perfectly pure, much less inside of us. So for me, it's obviously things that aren't healthy or helpful. Yes, I want to eliminate them out of my life as skillfully as possible, and to recognize that, well, as Bruno Groening said, God is my life. My battle is with evil. That there is um, this kind of ongoing struggle between good and evil right now on this planet, and that we're going to be facing it. Some days more, some days less. We're going to be facing it every day until that glorious day when it is no more, which Bruno spoke of sometimes. And that's part of why it's so important to strive for God. It's so important to um, so important to seek the solution, the really the ultimate solution to all of our problems. So let's continue to take in this good energy. Let's continue to take in the solution and really reflect on what's most important to us. As human beings, in a sense, what's most important to us is oxygen, right? But we don't think about it. But take oxygen away and we become aware of it very quickly. But what if there's something even more important? That just as we don't think about how important oxygen is, what if there's something even more important? Bruno Groening said there was the good, the divine, God. So let's reflect on who and what we are, and what do we really need in this life. So if, as Bruno Groening said, the good will prevail, then all we need is a little patience and a little faith, and to put in some effort. Bruno Groening said that, let me see if I don't have it handy. He said that in essence, paradise would be restored on earth, and that our thoughts and attitudes can help that come about sooner. So the outcome is already set. Things are going to work out here on this planet. However, how long it takes, that's where free will comes in. That's our part, to be a part of helping that to happen. And so, if we can really trust that that's the truth, and let's face it, it comes down to faith and trust. I'm not able to see into the future. So, all I can say is that Bruno Groening said it, and actually other people have said it as well. And um, I believe that's the message of the Bible: is the restoration of the kingdom of heaven on earth. Um, so that does come down to a question of faith. Are we willing to trust in that? Are we willing to trust that good is stronger than evil? Really? And if so, then are we willing to be patient and during the regulation, during the cleansing that's each one of us is going through, and it seems to me the whole world is going through it, can we maintain our faith even when things aren't going well? I'm not an expert at this one. Sometimes, sometimes I do great in it. Sometimes the hardest things come my way, and I'm able to stay at peace and have faith. Sometimes the littlest inconveniences come, and I get frustrated and angry. So it's something that I'm growing with, and on this path we're all um, seeking to better ourselves in it. And the invitation is to keep coming back to faith and trust, especially no matter what, especially when things aren't going well. So let's spend a final couple minutes together in silence, taking in this good energy, really asking ourselves, are we willing to take a leap of faith that good is stronger than evil? Are we willing to take a leap of faith that the good will prevail on this planet, and that includes us as well? What would our lives look like if we really trusted that everything would be okay? Meaning, what would our attitude be like? What would our state of inner peace be like if we really trusted that everything would be okay? That's what I'm committed to living. And some days it's easier than others. And I must say, I made this decision to live that way, this way on New Year's Eve. And, it's a whole different pair of glasses to put on glasses and to look at life from the lens of everything is going to be okay. Like, yes, whatever, when we face a challenge, like, yes, this is uncomfortable or this is painful or, oh, I don't like this. And everything's going to be okay. Because usually what happens, when something, we have this habit of when something bad happens, like, oh my God, it's awful. Life is falling apart. I can't stand it. And that, of course, doesn't help. That, of course, makes it worse. That's the habit we're one of the main habits on this path to seek to overcome. So I'm going to commit, and I ask each one of you here to commit that the next time something painful happens, something challenging happens, just try this out. Like, oh, I don't like this, or oh, this is uncomfortable, and everything's going to be okay. This is just one tiny wave on the ocean. Maybe it's a big wave, and compared to the ocean, it's tiny. It will pass. Everything will be okay. Thank you so much for joining in, everyone. I'll be doing this again later this afternoon and probably this evening. Once again, I'm sorry that there's a technical glitch and comments aren't welcome. No, they're very welcome. They're just not possible right now. And look forward to seeing and feeling you all very soon. Let's take a final minute or two together and ask for the highest and best for everyone who came here today. Let's tune in for everyone who watches this video. Let's ask for anything specific that's on our minds and hearts right now. Let's ask for deeper faith and ultimate faith, trusting that everything will be okay. And let's ask for this from Mother Earth herself and for every living being on this earth. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks so much for joining in. Take care. And actually, let's take the final moment and recognize that inside each of us, Bruno said, the human being is and remains divine. That inside of me, inside of you, inside of everyone, there's something sacred and holy. There's literally, I don't know whether it's a part of God or a drop of God, but inside each one of us, there's the sacred lives, God lives. Let's take a moment and recognize that in ourselves. Recognize that as we go out throughout our day to see that in other people. Take care. Much love.